The Caribbean Sea has become a battlefield in waiting. U.S. destroyers cut through the waves, their missile hatches armed, radars sweeping Venezuelan skies. From hidden bases in Puerto Rico, stealth fighters prepare for silent runs. Invisible, unstoppable. And in Caracas, alarms wail as President Nicolas Maduro warns. America has pointed over 1,000 missiles at his nation. In response, Venezuela mobilizes militias, stockpiles weapons, and dares Washington to make the first move. This is no drill. This is the opening act of a showdown that could set the Caribbean on fire. But will this clash remain a standoff or ignite into a war neither side can control? But before we continue, if you enjoy military history, real-time conflict updates, and suspenseful breakdowns like this, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. It helps us bring you more deep dive reports on global flashpoints. August 2025. The United States moves its pieces onto the board. 3 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers and a Ticonderoga-class cruiser slice through the southern Caribbean waters, their decks bristling with vertical launch systems. Each vessel carries more than 90 Tomahawk cruise missiles, capable of flying hundreds of miles at low altitude, striking command bunkers, radar sites, and missile batteries deep inside Venezuelan territory with surgical precision. Their arrival is not symbolic, it is a warning written in steel. Behind this spearhead, the U.S. Navy's amphibious assault ships loom like floating fortresses. On board, 4,000 Marines and sailors wait, armored vehicles, landing craft, and helicopters ready for deployment. From the horizon, they look like harmless silhouettes. But each one is a city of war at sea, capable of unleashing an invasion force on Venezuelan shores within hours. Above them, the skies hum with menace. F-35 stealth fighters, launched from Puerto Rico and reinforced by nearby bases, prowl invisible. Their radar signatures vanish against the Caribbean heat, rendering them ghosts in the sky. To Washington, they are the tip of the spear, the silent hunters that would cripple Venezuela's defenses before the first amphibious troop even sets foot on the sand. To Caracas, they are a nightmare, a threat they cannot see, cannot track, but know is always overhead. Venezuelan radar operators strain at their consoles, searching empty skies. American pilots glide unseen, their helmet displays marking out potential targets with digital crosshairs. The message is clear. The U.S. is already in range, already watching, already capable of striking anywhere, anytime. This is not a gesture. This is the quiet tightening of a noose, invisible until it's too late to escape. September 2nd, 2025. The Caribbean night is heavy and silent. A small Venezuelan patrol vessel cuts through the black waters, running with its lights dimmed, hugging the coast to avoid attention. On board, a crew of conscripts whispers nervously. To them, this is just another patrol, another night on the edge of a brewing storm. But above them, unseen and unheard, U.S. eyes are already watching. An MQ-9 Reaper drone circles high in the darkness, its sensors locking onto the vessel. Data streams back to a command center hundreds of miles away. Operators watch glowing screens as crosshairs fix on the target. The order comes. A missile drops from the drone's wing and streaks downward like a falling star. In a flash of fire and steel, the Venezuelan vessel is torn apart. 11 sailors vanish into smoke and flame. Within hours, Washington issues a statement. The vessel was suspected of narcotics trafficking. The strike was justified. But in Caracas, the story is different. Maduro calls it murder. He declares the dead sailors martyrs, victims of an American act of war. 2 weeks later, it happens again. September 15th, 2025. Another Venezuelan boat patrols the same waters. Again, American drones track it. This time, the strike is even faster. A burst of fire, a thunderclap across the sea, and the vessel disintegrates. 3 bodies float lifeless in the waves. The wreckage burns, flickering like a funeral pyre against the night. The message is clear. These are not accidents. These are signals. calculated warnings written in fire across the Caribbean waters. Caracas responds with fury. State TV runs images of grieving families. The streets echo with chants. Yankees go home. Soldiers march in front of cameras, weapons raised, swearing vengeance. Venezuela's generals warn that every boat, every radar, every outpost will now be on high alert. But behind the rage lies fear. Because the truth is undeniable, the United States has shown it can strike at will in darkness with drones and missiles that Venezuela cannot stop. 2 strikes, 2 warnings, and a message written in fire. The U.S. is willing to kill. The question now is, how far will Venezuela go to answer? The smoke from the destroyed patrol boats had barely cleared when Caracas moved to respond. For Venezuela, the strikes were not just acts of aggression, they were a public humiliation. The government knew it had to show strength or risk appearing powerless before its own people. Within days, Maduro declared the beginning of Caribe Soberano, Sovereign Caribbean, the largest military drill Venezuela had staged in decades. Coastal mobilization. On beaches along the northern coast, thousands of soldiers dug trenches into the sand. Anti-aircraft guns were rolled into position, their barrels pointed toward the sky. Camouflage bunkers appeared overnight, hidden under fishing nets and palm leaves. To civilians, the coastlines began to look less like a tropical escape and more like the edge of a battlefield. Naval maneuvers. The Venezuelan Navy surged into the waters. Rusting frigates and patrol boats, decades old, sailed in formation. They lacked the sleek power of U.S. destroyers, but to Caracas, their presence mattered more than their firepower. Each one carried live ammunition, and each captain knew the risk. If a U.S. missile locked on, their ship could be ash and steel in seconds. Still, they sailed a floating defiance. Air Force in the skies. Above, Venezuela scrambled its aging fleet of F-16s. Aircraft once bought from the United States itself. Though outdated compared to the F-35s prowling invisibly overhead, Venezuelan pilots flew low and fast, hugging the terrain to avoid detection. In training runs, they simulated attacks on phantom U.S. destroyers, releasing flares and practicing evasive dives. Their message was clear. If war came, they would fight even against impossible odds. Electronic warfare. In military bases, Venezuela's electronic warfare units went to work. Trucks loaded with jamming equipment and radar systems fired up across the countryside. Their mission: blind the eyes of U.S. drones, scramble GPS signals, and make the battlefield a fog of confusion. Whether the systems could withstand America's advanced cyber and electronic arsenal was doubtful. But Venezuela was determined to resist on every front. Propaganda and resolve. On state television, Maduro appeared in fatigues, surrounded by generals. He declared, "If America invades, they will not find a nation divided. They will find a republic in arms." His words echoed through streets already filled with angry chants and waving flags. Billboards declared, "La Patria no se rinde." The homeland does not surrender. Every drill, every maneuver, every fiery speech was meant to send a message. Venezuela was not folding under pressure. Instead, it was preparing to bleed its enemy. The drills were more than preparation. They were defiance. A warning shot without firing a bullet that if America came, Venezuela was ready to meet them head-on. While the U.S. arsenal in the Caribbean was vast, visible, and overwhelming, Venezuela's strength lay in something far more subtle: its ability to hide. Maduro's generals knew they could not match the Pentagon ship for ship, jet for jet, missile for missile. But what they could do, what they had spent years preparing for, was to make every inch of Venezuelan territory hostile to an invader. And so beneath jungles, inside mountains, and across sprawling urban centers, they built their arsenal of denial. The Manpads network. Venezuela's deadliest equalizer came not from billion-dollar jets, but from the shoulders of soldiers. With over 5,000 Russian-made Manpads, shoulder-fired anti-air missiles, scattered across the nation, no low-flying U.S. aircraft could feel safe. From rooftops in Caracas to jungle clearings in the Orinoco Basin, A single soldier could bring down a helicopter or transport plane in seconds. To the Pentagon, it was a nightmare scenario. Invisible threats hidden in every shadow. To Venezuela, it was the Stinger strategy, bleed the giant one strike at a time. Coastal defenses. On the shoreline, Soviet-era coastal missile batteries were dragged out of storage and camouflaged among rocks and vegetation. They lacked the range and accuracy of America's Tomahawks, but in a narrow strait or shallow bay, even one successful strike could cripple a U.S. vessel. Venezuelan soldiers called them the Sea Vipers, patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Air Force on the edge. The Venezuelan Air Force was outnumbered and outclassed. Its fleet of F-16 Fighting Falcons, once a symbol of power, was now aging and worn. But pilots trained daily, flying low, skimming treetops, using terrain as cover. A Venezuelan pilot knew that in a head-on clash with an F-35, they stood little chance. But if they could bait U.S. jets into ambush zones, if they could fire their few remaining radar-guided missiles from close range, they might take American aircraft down with them. Every pilot's oath was simple. Fight until the jet burns, or you do. The militia stockpiles. Beyond the Army and Navy, Venezuela had quietly armed its civilian militias. Warehouses across the country were packed with assault rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and explosives, ready to turn towns and cities into killing fields. If U.S. Marines ever landed, they would not just face soldiers. They would face bakers, drivers, students, all turned fighters, all armed with whatever the state could provide. Electronic warfare and cyber tools. Finally, Venezuela leaned on a quieter weapon, its Russian-supplied electronic warfare systems. Trucks with jammers and radars rolled across highways, setting up in hidden fields. Their task, confuse U.S. GPS-guided munitions, blind drones, and scramble communication lines. Alone, these systems could not defeat America's superior cyber warfare. But even a flicker of interference at the right time, one lost drone, one misfired missile, could buy Venezuela precious time. For Washington, Venezuela's arsenal was not terrifying because of its power. It was terrifying because of its persistence. None of these weapons alone could stop the U.S. Navy. But together, scattered, hidden, unleashed in ambushes, they could turn an invasion into a long, bloody grind. Maduro could not hope to win a conventional war. But with his hidden arsenals, he could make America pay for every step it took in blood. Silence can be the deadliest part of a standoff. In the hours between strikes and drills, the loudest sound is the ticking of commanders' watches, decisions waiting like landmines under every second. Rules of engagement are supposed to keep chaos contained. Here, they are paper-thin. The standing orders. U.S. commanders issue blunt guidance. Protect the fleet, protect U.S. lives. Any Venezuelan aircraft approaching within a defined threat envelope around U.S. ships, closing fast, locking radar, or making threatening maneuvers, is to be treated as hostile. The order is precise, cold. If an aircraft presents an imminent danger to a ship or crew, it may be engaged and shot down. Across the bridge of a destroyer, officers watch multiple feeds. Radar tracks pop and vanish. The captain's thumb hovers over a button that, in a single push, will change the lives of dozens of sailors and send shockwaves across the hemisphere. Caracas counterorders. In Caracas, Maduro and his generals issue their counter. Any strike on Venezuelan forces, militia, navy, or air, will be met as an act of war. Commanders are told to repel aggression, to protect sovereign waters, and to treat American presence as an invasion force until proven otherwise. Local commanders are granted discretion to fire on targets they assess to be intruders. The opposing orders are simple, symmetrical, and terrifyingly dangerous. Both sides have justification to fire. Both sides command subordinate units that will act on instinct, not on diplomatic nuance. Close encounters at sea. Patrol boats begin to buzz like angry hornets around bigger U.S. ships. Venezuelan fast attack craft sling across wake lines to test reaction times. Pilots skirt dangerously close to the decks of destroyers, the gap measured in meters and heartbeat. Night interceptions occur at low altitude. A missile lock warning flashes red on a ship's console. The moment stretches, pilot, radar operator, captain, each waiting, each calculating. In one near miss, a Venezuelan fighter makes a high-speed, low-altitude pass over a destroyer. The destroyer's CIWS, close-in weapon system, swivels and tracks. Men sweat in the ops room. Fingers move toward engagement triggers. The jet pulls up and the theater exhales. But the reprieve is temporary, tensions spike higher. Drones, electronic jamming and confusion. Drones loiter beyond visual range, feeding imagery into rapid decision loops. Electronic warfare units light up, attempting to jam communications and scramble targeting solutions. For a commander watching a screen, a jammed feed looks like the calm before an ambush. Sensors black out, friendly aircraft lose link, and unknown contacts appear as blips. A jammed GPS can turn a guided weapon into a blind missile. A spoofed radar signature can trick an operator into thinking an incoming missile is about to impact. In such fog, a nervous commander may pull a trigger based on incomplete corrupted data, and irreversible action follows. The human element, fear, pride, and mistake. It takes only one human error, a misread instrument, a panicked junior officer, a pilot misinterpreting a maneuver. Pride and fear both play their part. A local commander who refuses to back down to avoid humiliation. A U.S. captain who cannot bear the thought of losing sailors under his command. That mixture of ego and responsibility raises the probability of miscalculation. Commanders try to build buffers, warning shots, radio hails, flares, but at night, at sea, those buffers can be missed or misread. A flare intended as a signal can be seen as a precursor to attack. A radio call can be missed in the static of electronic interference. Escalation scenarios born from misjudgment. A Venezuelan missile battery locks onto a radar contact it cannot identify. A single missile launch draws an immediate Tomahawk response aimed at the launcher. What began as a local defense becomes a strike on critical infrastructure. A U.S. warship, convinced a fast attack boat will attempt a suicide run on the hull, fires to disable it. Casualties mount, and Caracas orders retaliatory strikes on the closest U.S. asset. A drone is shot down and recovered by Venezuelan forces. Washington demands the return of classified material. Diplomacy breaks down. Commanders escalate posture in anticipation of further seizure attempts. Each escalation path is short. The ladder from skirmish to sustained combat has few rungs, and each one is coated with accelerating momentum. The strategic calculus, why restraint is fragile. Both capitals know the costs. Washington understands that a full-scale operation would be ruinous politically and militarily. Caracas understands that conventional defeat is likely. Yet, both also understand the political pain of backing down after lives are lost. That political calculus makes restraint fragile. Neither side wants to look weak to its domestic audience. The sea becomes the worst of political arenas, where images of burning vessels and grieving families are immediate and uncontrollable. A single strike, a single well-publicized casualty, can harden positions and force leaders into a path of retaliation rather than retreat. In a standoff governed by hairline decisions and human fear, the most dangerous weapon is not a missile or a ship. It is the moment when someone, somewhere, decides they cannot wait any longer. The stage is set. On one side, the United States Navy, armed with the most advanced arsenal on Earth, destroyers, stealth fighters, marines, and drones that can strike in silence. On the other, Venezuela, outgunned but not unprepared, its hidden arsenals of manpads, coastal defenses, militias, and the iron resolve to bleed any invader, no matter the cost. Already, the first blows have been struck. Patrol boats lie in ruins, sailors buried at sea. Drills thunder across Venezuelan beaches, while U.S. ships draw ever closer, their missiles armed and aimed. Both sides stand locked in a dangerous dance of deterrence, where one miscalculation, one mistaken radar contact, could turn a tense standoff into a regional inferno. The Caribbean has become a powder keg. The fuse is short, and the world is watching, holding its breath for the moment the first spark ignites. The question is no longer if the storm will break, but when and how far the flames will spread once it does. If you found this breakdown gripping, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Battle Vault, and share it with others who follow global conflicts. Your support helps us bring you more deep dive reports on flashpoints shaping tomorrow's wars. Stay sharp and stay tuned.